Funny.
Hi, hello. My name is Isaac Julien, and I'm incredibly excited today because I feel reunited with I'm the biggest fan of Fernanda Torres.
Hi.
Hi, Fernanda. You know, it's so exciting to be kind of in conversation here with you on this special platform that's been designed by Nara Roesler Gallery. I want to thank them so much for the opportunity providing us this conversation. And just to say, you know, I mean, Fernanda, it was so exciting to work with you and your mother. Really, it was just so thrilling. I mean, really, I mean, you know, sometimes things come true, you know, and working with you on Lina Bo Bardi and Marvelous Entanglement was just so amazing. I mean, to be able to work with the most important sort of actors in Brazilian cinema and theatre, for me was such an honor, you know. So to be here talking with you now is so fantastic, to reunite in these really strange times that we've entered into, you know. But it's fantastic to be able to have the reminder of other times, you know, when we were working together. And in a way, well, I just wondered sort of like, you know, how you're feeling, and sort of, you know, kind of we can merrily go back into memory lane when we were working together.
I was dreaming that at this time we would be in Brazil, seeing each other again, because we were supposed to bring the exhibition to Brazil, but unfortunately this virus came along, and so here we are. And I owe you so much, Isaac. First, because of this deep involvement with Lina Bo Bardi that I knew before. Of course, I knew, but to be with you in her works and with my mother and playing Lina in both ages, it's such a beautiful idea, because Lina, I mean, she spent her whole life in Brazil, almost half of it, and it's a country that has changed her. In a way, to have me and my mother representing this changing, and for me, I mean, to discover you and to have the chance to be filmed by you with your such a powerful images. It's so amazing. I'm so grateful to you. So it's a pleasure to be again together with you.
Well, that's so kind. That's so kind. I mean, I just, you know, felt that, you know, it was so amazing. And I have to say that, you know, the idea initially was with Raffaella, you know, who worked with me for the best part of 5 years on the project in London. Now she's back in Brazil at Nara Roesler Gallery. But I think this idea, you know, because I know it's rare that yourself and your mother, Fernanda, in Montenegro worked together, but I just felt, you know, that being able to represent the two different times in your performances, mature Lina Bo Bardi and a young Lina Bo Bardi really, in a way, became so exciting. And I know that one of the things, of course, which crystallized the whole project was when I first had an exhibition at Sesqui Pompeia and had the opportunity to work with Lina Bo Bardi's collaborators and designers. That's when I fell in love with Lina Bo Bardi. But for the longest time, we just thought, how are we going to do this? How do we represent these different times, these different moments? And what I feel happens with both of you together is that you bring together this really powerful dynamic where time and, in a way, space becomes sort of intertwined, and it becomes this incredible, to quote from Lina Bo Bardi, marvelous entanglement of feelings and kind of moments which are being distilled in the way that you read her manifestos and bring to life and into flesh her very words. Because of course there's been so many exciting exhibitions and books on Lina Bo Bardi. I mean, we could say there's a Lina Bo Bardi studies, which has been created. But if you're making a film, you have to be able to, in a way, live, feel, and breathe her. And so that's what you both did. You kind of breathed life into her being and gave us Lina Bo Bardi back again. So it was so thrilling for me. And, I thought maybe it'd be fantastic, if we had a little clip from the Sesqui Pompeia sort of section of the work and, to see you and your mother together.
I would love to.
It was just so special, really, to kind of have that sort of possibility of you.
Because when you see her, it's funny. When she arrives in Brazil in the 50s, she's an European coming from war, and when at her last stage, she's like an orisha. She's like this entity. She became something that has nothing to do with the young European Lina.
Então, abandonada a fábrica de
No,
tambores.
that's right. She kind of, in a way, kind of like looked at this factory from her Italian experience of working with craft.
O que me despertou a
And
curiosidade
it's just
foram
able to give
aqueles
us this
galpões
amazing
racionalmente,
kind of
conforme
transformation.
os projetos ingleses
So
que
let's
têm
watch a little bit of the clip
autorização
there.
europeia.
This is the free screen version.
Todavia, o que me encantou foi a elegante, precursora estrutura de concreto. Mas na segunda vez que lá estive, era um sábado, o ambiente era outro. Crianças corriam, jovens jogavam futebol debaixo da chuva que caía dos telhados rachados, rindo com o chute da bola na água. Em volta eu pensei, mas isso tudo deve continuar assim, com toda essa alegria? É aqui que começa a história da realização do Centro Sesc Fábrica Pompeia. Tenho também, pelo ar-condicionado, o mesmo horror que eu tenho pelos carpetes. Assim surgiram os buracos pré-históricos das cavernas, sem vidros, sem nada. Os buracos permitem uma ventilação cruzada, permanente. As cadeirinhas de madeira do Teatro da Pompeia é apenas uma tentativa de devolver ao teatro seu atributo de distanciar e envolver, e não apenas sentar-se. No que se refere à cadeirinha toda de madeira e sem estofado, os autos da Idade Média, por exemplo, eram apresentados nas praças, o público de pé andando. Os teatros greco-romanos não tinham estofados, eram de pedra, ao ar livre. E os espectadores tomavam chuva, assim, como hoje nos degraus dos estádios do futebol, que também não têm estofados. Os estofados apareceram nos teatros áulicos das cortes e continuam até hoje no conforto da sociedade de consumo.
Wow. It is the first time I see it, actually.
No, God. But in the night screen version, it completely encapsulates you. I mean, it really,
My God.
you know, it's incredibly kind of exciting to have this sort of kaleidoscopic relationship to Lina's sort of architecture. And Sesqui Pompeia was the first place I had my actual kind of solo show in Brazil. And I'll never forget it. Because, I mean, it's an amazing space because the way it's a kind of utopian space. It brings all the arts together, sports, culture, theatre, dancing, everything. And I think, you know, having, you know, your mother, Fernanda Torres, there sort of as Lina Bo Bardi is so moving because you have this kind of real connection between, if you like, you know, her philosophy, her descriptions of how people used to kind of watch theatre, and the way in which the design throughout is all Bo Bardi, and just the kind of social kind of, you know, utopian audience that comes there, you know, from people who want to do flamenco dancing, your mother, children, going to sports, going to plays, you know, businessmen on their lunchtime breaks. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I've never been to an art center like that anywhere in the world where people could sort of, in a way, congregate. And the way that her architecture allows that to happen, it allows these flows. It's not preaching down to anybody, you know, it utilizes the space in such an amazing manner. It really is a kind of architecture for the people, but at the same time, it's incredibly modernist, you know, and in a way uncompromising. So, I mean, I was just blown away by it. So after that, I just, you know.
That's it. The first time I performed in Sesc Pompeia, I was doing Orlando by Virginia Woolf. I was really young. And I had the same shock because it was a mix of like a town square with children, with old people, people reading, people dancing, and at the same time, that high class environment. I mean, because you cannot be there without being in awe with what Lina did. That mixture of something really simple, our normal life of normal people, and at the same time, this very elevated vision of art and architecture and democracy and art for everybody. And you have those windows. I mean, the windows are unbelievable, because it's what she says. It's something related to Plato, to the myth of the cave of Plato, and at the same time is the most rough and simple kind of architectures. So Lina is really different.
No, I mean, it's incredible. And I think there's a way in which sort of like, you know, in my work, I've really tried to pay a homage to this kind of use of architecture and the kind of portal and the vista that she gives you, views onto the city, views onto the landscape. But as you say, in this kind of very high modernist manner, and at the same time, not preaching at all, you know, incredibly simple and incredibly direct. And here you are, you was on the cover of Wallpaper magazine.
My back.
And, you know, in this work, I was really trying to give this kind of utopian vision, you know, onto the city, you know, which I saw her involved in. And also at the same time, to give this sort of the aesthetics of the cutout. You know, we can think of Matisse, you know, you can think of, in a way, the whole history of art in relationship to the cutout, which she literally did to her buildings, which I think is incredible and gives it this real kind of strong, kind of modern kind of theme, you know. So in a way, this kind of utopian vision of looking out onto the urban scape, and in a way, this sort of architect where she transformed the city through her real commitment, social commitment to sort of people and urbanism and environment. I mean, she knew that in Brazil, it was going to be a tough one, you know, a tough one to, in a way, keep going. And so these buildings, which are in concrete, I mean, for example, when we worked in the Quati in Salvador, I mean, it's a modern ruin, but I mean, it's the most amazing modern ruin. And it's very ironic because, you know, Lina Bo Bardi hated ruins. She grew up in Rome, amongst ruins. She wanted to escape them, but she probably knew somehow that because of the kind of social neglect that happens, that her buildings would have to be impervious, you know. But I think this concentric space, platform for meditation, which is meant to be a cafe, which in a sense is another utopian vision, which never actually came alive in the same way in Salvador and Bahia as it has done in a place like Sesc Pompeia and São Paulo. Nonetheless, you know, we were very, in a way, lucky to be introduced to this space, because when Rafaela, you know, and I worked together on this project in 2015, we couldn't get access to that space at all in Bahia, the Quati, which is a kind of masterpiece, and it was impossible. And it was because of the Goethe Institute and what they did in terms of, in a way, social reform through art, where they reopened the space, that we were able to, in a way, enter through this sort of portal, this moment, and in a way begin the filming with you. But of course, I remember when we met you and your mother in Rio, and you said, Isaac, you've been speaking to us about this project for quite some time. My mother is going to be at a certain age, Isaac. So if you want to do this project, you need to do it now.
It's true.
Time in our space, in our diary. So, you know, and then I thought, okay, we have to go for it. You know, I was speaking to you for several years about this project. We have to do it now. And thank God we did it then, you know, because...
Thank God, because we wouldn't do it now. And when you see that place, Kwati, was abandoned, and you see how the structure in which it's made, how it survived, even abandonment. And in Brazil, you have to think about it because things here become ruins very fast.
Yeah.
Claude Lévi-Strauss has this saying that the buildings in Brazil, they are born ruins. They are like 1 year old and they're already ruins. But her structure, the simple way of making it, make it eternal, even with the abandonment that Brazil practiced with culture and everything.
Yeah.
So in Kwati, it's such a symbol of her strength and eternity.
No, absolutely. You know, and you know, for me, I thought it was amazing the way that you and your mother took to that space and, you know, embodied it in a sense and brought it to life. It was it was thrilling, really. I
remember you telling us, come here, and you told it to my mother, you should be like enraged because it was abandoned.
Yeah.
You should be very upset with its abandonment, which was like so beautiful because it's the young Lina that thought about that, looking to the old Lina mad because they have abandoned it. It's so beautiful.
And there's an extraordinary moment, I think, when you and your mother are performing together and you're mirroring your actions. And this becomes really so symbolic, I think, in terms of the return of Lina Bo Bardi in your personas, not as ghosts, but actually as living, participating artists, as women artists, and you're kind of in unison in your actions and in a way mourning this moment, and at the same time your presence of being there. So it was a very airy moment, but it was something, I think, of when the film, in a sense, creates its own language and the kind of, if you like, duo performance of you both really, in a way, brings together this sort of spirit of Bo Bardi, which I was searching for in the work. And I mean, and when you have the installation, you know, across the 9 screens, you get this sense of really this space, a kind of haunting. At the same time, you get this sort of contemporary glance on it, because you can see what the building looks like today. And I think one of the exciting things was really how then, in making it, I have to say, I started to look at all of her museums, and it's especially in Masby, when I went to the reopening, and here we can see the glass easels and concrete plinths, and through Adriano and his amazing work at Masby in terms of resurrecting Lina Bo Bardi's signature sort of ways of displaying art, it just created such a kind of frisson for me. So that was also another moment that was very important. And
no, Masby, sorry.
No, please.
No, because Masby, I have been to Masby first time when I was a child, and of course you couldn't. I didn't realize at that time what MASP was, but for me it was normal that you could see the picture as a sculpture, because it's not only what is painted, it's also the whole object, and also the feeling of perspective in time that you have in that. It's a masterpiece. It's Absolutely. A piece of art of all the art in the world. And Absolutely. The way you see like a modern picture, but in the back you have something from the medieval time, and then one after the other, and one picture is not separated from the other. It's all the same human history and the history of art. That's unbelievable. It's the most amazing museum I have ever been. I mean, the glass, the lack of walls, it's unbelievable.
No, it is. It's unbelievable. And I think, I mean, from when I saw the kind of wonderful exhibition that Adriano created of resurrecting the prints, I thought, I can't wait to film it. And so I think...
No, and I owe you, me and my mother, the chance of being in that space, totally empty. There was nobody, and we could walk in the alleys. It was like, my God, this is a dream. And it was a beautiful day. I can't remember, but the way the light comes in the alleys, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
Well, I think what we're going to do, we're going to show a clip from this sequence, where you and your mother, Lina Bo Bardi and young Lina Bo Bardi, you kind of recite her manifesto, and it's really an amazing scene, really a pivotal scene in the work.
Look at this.
Tá tudo pronto? Tá? Vou falar.
Tirar a terceira, câmera A. 1:31, primeira, câmera A.
Casas ou museus?
Primeiro as casas ou os museus?
Tudo de uma vez só. As casas,
tudo de uma só
as
vez?
Escolas, os
as
museus,
casas, as escolas, os museus, as bibliotecas.
A planificação de uma
planificação
cidade não pode esquecer dois edifícios públicos
que ainda hoje são considerados
um luxo intelectual.
O museu
e a biblioteca. Museu? Oh.
Museu.
O que é um museu?
O que é um museu?
Correntemente, quando se quer designar uma pessoa, uma coisa, uma ideia antiquada, inútil, fora de uso,
costuma-se dizer, é uma peça de museu.
Costuma-se dizer, é uma peça de museu.
Querendo indicar com essas palavras o lugar que no quadro da cultura contemporânea, o museu ocupa. Lugar poerento e inútil.
Lugar poerento e inútil.
O museu moderno tem que ser um museu didático.
Tem que juntar
a conservação,
a capacidade de transmitir a mensagem que as obras devem ser postas em evidência por parte do arquiteto,
que não deve aproveitar a ocasião para dar espetáculo em torno de si mesmo.
Qual a significação de uma peça isolada?
Uma obra de arte mesmo se exposta
assim
com a mais perfeita
técnica museográfica.
Se essa obra é fim em si mesma.
Se esta obra
isolada no tempo, no espaço.
Fim em si mesma.
Sem nenhuma ligação com o nosso.
Isolada no tempo e no espaço.
Sem continuidade histórica.
Sem nenhuma ligação com o nosso tempo. Sem continuidade histórica. Falei.
Fernanda, that's amazing. So exciting. It gives me a thrill every time I see it, really. And there's just something about the kind of way I feel that, you know, in this kind of duo performance and the kind of way you recite the manifestos. And I'm very struck, you know, in this moment where, you know, of course, Lina Bo Bardi says, you know, the museum and the library is still considered an intellectual luxury, you know. And thinking about this particular moment that we're in, of course, when it comes to the kind of COVID-19 pandemic, you know, and, you know, the general cuts which have been taking place, it's so interesting that, you know, if we think about Germany, the spaces which kind of maybe are the first spaces that reopen are sort of, you know, galleries and museums. But, you know, in England and also in Brazil, I mean, they're the places that get cut the first, you know. And I don't know, there's just, I mean, there's something I think about, you know, especially Masterpiece, which for me, this kind of installation is one of the most important installations of the world of kind of modern art and art as we know it, you know. I mean, it's just.
And you have, I mean, the space itself with the paintings, but also the building, which is done in the same way Coati was done. It's very rough, concrete, rough, and she created the space, the empty space underneath the museum, and she made it to transform it in a place for people. And nowadays in São Paulo, that's the place where the majority of the manifestations pro or against the government are take place. So Lina is still ruling the city. She created the democratic space in the city. Yeah. So she has a deep understanding of the word culture.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, is totally misunderstood. They treat culture in the way Lina talks about, like this high class utility, something useful. That's how they treat culture nowadays. And like something bourgeois that only people who doesn't have anything else to do are related to. And no, Lina treats culture like the heart of people, of a nation. Mm-hmm. And you can see that in her buildings. So in MASP, you have that very refined exhibition with the art history, and at the same time, the square for the people. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think, you know, this sort of way of looking at culture, which has kept, in a way, I think, culture alive and has been able to, in a way, as you say, encapsulate both things, you know, which I think, you know, that she, you know, was a true Democrat, and she really wanted to fuse these things and not have a separation, that culture and people and society, that civic society was of paramount importance. And I think that can't be, you know, I mean, I think the way that she fused sort of art and culture, thinking about spaces and the way that artists and people utilize those spaces. If we take this work, for example, basically, it's called What is a Museum? That's the title of this work. And, if you go to Bahia, to Salvador, to MAM, there are these stairs which she designed, which are incredible, which you came down so elegantly. I must say they're also a little bit dangerous. But there's a way in which, the artists utilize those stairs for performances, and I was able to sort of work with, there you are, yourself. I was able to work with Ballet Folklorica, who did a performance down the stairs, which was mimicking a performance from the 60s by Leah Gatta, who was the kind of one of the artists who utilized the stairs for performance then. And I mean, of course, it's still an incredibly vibrant space in terms of the way that people come together in it.
And another thing about that stair is that in Bahia, you have a very powerful art craftsmanship of wood. How do you say it?
Craftsmanship. Absolutely.
Craftsmanship with wood. And that's what she utilized to do that stair. There is no nails, it's just
joints. Literally.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
he developed from an oxen cart wheel, and so, I think as an Italian background, when Italy, craftsmanship, that those crafts which are, developed by the workers, are looked upon as being so core and central to a culture. And I guess you could bring that sort of idea of organic culture into design, and then in a way kind of expand it, and to give it its respect. And I mean, I think this translation of organic materials, organic craftsmanship, and to bring this into design in such a simple, elegant manner, I mean, personifies really, her greatness in terms of her place, I would say, in representing, Brazilian culture, which she did so amazingly.
And that's what Bahia made to her. I mean, because she came with her husband to create MASP in São Paulo, to bring high culture to this primitive country. And then she goes to Bahia, and in Bahia, Bahia changes her. She discovered in Bahia Pierre Verger, who was this photographer who was like dealing with all the candomblé and the black culture in Bahia, which is powerful as hell.
Absolutely.
And then she discovered this, which is very Italian. I mean, the artisan, it's not a lower artist. The artisan is the high artist. That is the father of design. And then comes back to São Paulo, and she does the Bahia show, where she, in a way, she shows Brazil to Brazil. She introduced Brazil to Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny, because, obviously, I'm an outsider. I'm not a Brazilian. My parents were born quite near to Brazil in the West Indies, but I think sometimes, outsiders perhaps can hold a mirror in a way that it's kind of, in a way permitted, sometimes. And I think she did just that. And I have to say that my experience of being in Bahia and in Salvador, for me, was really, almost existential, because there's a way in which I felt, you could be in kind of West Africa, you could be kind of like, on my parents' island in St. Lucia. I mean, of course, Bahia is a much larger, and Salvador's a huge city version. But I think it was just
Cuba. Salvador reminds me of Cuba, totally. And you know, about this, there is something interesting in Lina that you can find in Bahia. There is something bigger than ideology, than left or right, than communism or capitalism. It's something that rises from the culture itself, that you cannot put in a square and divide, so you are this or you are that. And Bahia, it's Brazil, but Bahia is Africa a lot, and Bahia is Caribbean, and Bahia at the same time is the most modern place you can be, because Tropicalia was born in Bahia. It's something to the future. So Bahia, that's why it changed her so much, I think, and changes everybody, everyone who goes there.
Yeah, I mean, it can change me, you know, because once I went to Bahia after this kind of long research period of thinking about making the work, I mean, in a way, it was completely transformative, because, you know, it was the key really to really making the work. And as you've described, you know, and Lina described, this kind of marvelous entanglement of culture and time, you know, because of course, you know, she was also thinking a lot about time, and, you know, she was a philosophy of space and time to a certain extent, remolding it and rearticulating it for a kind of popular audience, in a way transferring sort of, if you like, organic culture into high culture, and making, in a way, high culture we look at these aspects of its own culture and design. I think, you know, and she was so committed to these things. I mean, you know, if you go to, here we have the image of the library that she, you know, constructed in Saski Pompeo, where people can relax and meditate, read newspapers. And these chairs, for God's sake, I mean, I want them.
When you see, there is no beauty without utility. The two things must be together. So, and in design nowadays, you see it so much. I mean, it's something that look for beauty or something strange, but there is no utility. And that's why Lina is so powerful. She's so landed in I don't know, in the so rooted in the normal life, in what people need, and not, it's funny. This chair is this. It's beautiful. It's a piece of art, but it's very useful and makes people talk to each other, makes people meet each other. It's something made for people to meet and talk and relate.
I mean, I think the thing that you get is that, you know, in her work, you know, the whole aspect of ideas are so important, and, you know, conversation and discussion, and she sees those things as being really paramount in art, you know, where, of course, we've seen, you know, art change so much, where basically, you know, we think about it more as, you know, a commodity, so to speak, or we think about the kind of material of it. But I think, you know, that this approach to art, which I think Lina was in a way allowing us to follow through her work, is so important, I think. And I think thinking about this time that we're in, surely it gives, in a way, a moment for thought where we have to perhaps rethink, you know, our relationships to art and what we do, you know, in a way, how we consume precisely, you know. And yeah, so I think there's a way in which I think, you know, her ideas for me still resonate now. I mean, we need them even more. And I feel, yeah, we do. I mean, I think there's a way in which we really need to rethink, like, you know, the role of art, as she had done, and to try to, in a way, present a kind of more utopian vision of it, where it can be shared by more people, and in a way, kind of where culture can belong to everybody. And I think there's a way in which she was just so pivotal in making that a kind of possibility, you know, and yeah, so she's totally inspiring. I mean, we all know Oscar Niemeyer, don't we? We all, you know.
I was going to talk about Oscar Niemeyer. It's so funny. Two things. One, it's funny that Lina is a woman. I think she's much more aware of the necessity of creating like a family approach. I mean, a more human approach to life. When you see, I like Brasilia. Brasilia, which is the capital of Brazil, made by Oscar Niemeyer. Brasilia is awesome. But when you go inside Brasilia, it's a nightmare. That those buildings are terrible to live in. They are not good. They are claustrophobic. They are made, it's like a macho approach. There's a kind of vanity. Look, how powerful can I be?
Yeah.
And Lina is the opposite. Her buildings are born thinking about the people who will live there. So Brazil is a city made with the idea of design, not with the idea of humanity, I think. And that's the difference between Oscar and Lina. And I like Brasilia, but Brasilia is unlivable.
No, it's so funny. I mean, you know, here we have the two great modernist giants of, you know, Brazilian architecture, you know, and of course, Oscar Niemeyer, we know, and we go to Brasilia, of course, we're impressed, you know. I think it's, I mean, but I think, you know, Lina obviously, you know, in a way being both a humanist and a modernist, and also very much sort of attached to these modern ideas in architecture, as Oscar Niemeyer was. But I do think, you know, there's something about the use of space and time, and how the design, you know, is not being compromised, but it has this, as you say, utilitarian object to its use, you know, and it's that is something that's been very transformative in my own thinking, in terms of making works and thinking about, you know, where our future lies.
Look at this. Must be wonderful to be in the exhibition surrounded by Lina.
Well, the 9 screen is quite, you know, well, of course, one likes to think that you're able to at least keep audiences kind of away from their iPhone, at least for 5 seconds when they look at the work. And so I think obviously kind of we're hoping that we will bring this work to Brazil, that we'll bring it to Sesqui Pompeia in the fall. You know, we don't know, of course, where any of us are going to be, you know, a few months from now. Everything's completely unpredictable, but I'm looking very forward to our coming together again, Fernanda, and being able to be with your mother and to watch this work together, you know, and it was just
really looking forward to see it, because all my friends that were people in Brazil who had the chance to see it in Vitória Miro, they would come to me, people that I don't know, in the street saying, I saw it, I saw Lina, and they were so moved. And I think also, I mean, to bring Lina again nowadays gives us Brazilians a kind of horizon that reminds us of what we dreamed about being, that we are losing in Brazil. This generation of Lina and even my generation, we had this dream yet of the country of the future, that this country that it's like the mix of all the cultures. We are like this melting pot of cultures where people would be accepted. And suddenly we became this terrifying country. We are living now, as the world is living now, a time of shocking time.
Yeah,
it's a shocking time of a new terrible mentality, totally against Lina's thoughts. So I think to bring Lina now back, it's very important, Isaac. And I thank you a lot of, putting me in contact with her and my mother and making us to symbolize Lina at this time, you see.
Well, it's a very, moving for you to say that. And I do feel that there's a way in which, we have to, in a way, hang on to these kind of visionaries, at a time where we're having such a dystopic experience, and to see that there are people that can lead us, into the light, so to speak, out of this sort of dark sort of moment that we're inhabiting.
Because she did it. She came from a dystopic time. She came from war. And then out of the ruins of war, she built that window. So we have to do it.
Yep.
We have to do it.
We do, absolutely. So I think we have some questions here, from Gabriela Ferraro. How would you relate Lina's thinking to the present day in the middle of a pandemic? What do you think she would tell us today? Yeah, well, that's a very important question, isn't it? What would Lina think about where we are today? I think you've been partly answering that, haven't you, Fernanda?
I think also, I have been thinking about Lina, for instance, in the mountain. And before, I would be thinking, before the pandemic, about being productive, about my next project, what am I going to do? And suddenly this pandemic forced us just to stop. And I have been, the days, the meaning of the days are just life itself. It's a vegetable garden that I grow. It's like the food with my family. It's a play that we play together. There is no future. It's just time now. And I think Lina, she would be totally into this life without big projects, life without life itself. Life, the meal of the day is life itself.
Absolutely.
To be with your child. So she would see it in a very powerful way, I think. Of course, we're talking about a pandemic that when it hits the favela in Rio, it can't be seen like this. Again, I'm talking from a point of view of a very privileged person who can grow a vegetable garden. But even though I think Lina would watch it, thank God the world has stopped. And now we are forced to look at life in a very simple manner. And she would do it, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I think she would also. I think this idea of, in a way, utopian visions is really so important for thinking about the way she thought about culture and people. And she certainly would, I think, be very much meditating on what we need to do, you know, what would art need to do, what would be its function, what would be its role. It'd have to be rethought, it would have to be rearticulated in some way, shape or form to, in a way, portray the kind of experiences which people are, in a way, undergoing. So it is a very existential moment, I think. And I think there's a way in which, you know, we're in this time where, you know, the entanglement is, you know, quite complex and complicated, you know, because I think this idea of time and temporality that she was thinking about, you know, I mean, it is really something that I think this kind of future, which feels very temporal now, that we can't take for granted, is something which I think, you know, we all have to think about. But then, you know, I go back to the archive. I go back to that amazing scenographic display of paintings on those glass easels and concrete plinths, you know, as a kind of representation of, you know, what can be preserved, you know, that her buildings are in concrete, you know, they will still be there, you know. I know that concrete also needs preservation and conservation, but you know, perhaps when we're all long and gone, these things will still be here. So, do you have any last things to say, Fernanda, in our closing?
No, just that Lina, to have the chance to work with you, with your powerful images, and to emerge into Lina's work is helping me a lot now. I have been thinking a lot about her. I mean, not to despair, but to enjoy my days and to see my days as a powerful moment of reflection and I mean, to see it the way she would see it. I have been thinking a lot about it. Well, thank you very much, Isaac.
Thank you very much. You know, thank you so much for joining with me in this conversation. I want to thank, you know, Nara Roesler Gallery for all their support and giving us this opportunity. And well, stay safe.
And Rafaela, who put us together.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.